Good afternoon, Vaquero Nation and the RGV. Thank you for tuning into RGV Community Health Hour. I'm your host, DJ Kid. Because this is our first episode, I'm going to introduce myself a bit before giving our guest the floor. I'm a graduate student in the PhD in Human Genetics program, and this fall is our cohort start of our third year. I'm also an employee of UTRGV doing work with CRISPR in the Vandenberg lab, which is also a part of the Human Genetics division. As for the Community Health Hour, my goal for the show is to bring a variety of guests to speak about what they do and how it impacts the health of us here in the RGV. But just a quick reminder, the views expressed on the RGV Community Health Hour are for informational purposes only and do not constitute medical advice. Be sure to consult your primary care provider for all your health care needs. All right, now that we have the administrative stuff taken care of, we can go on to our first guest interview. I'm here with Dr. Jacob Galan, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and talk a little bit about how he ended up here at UTRGV.
Hey, Ricardo. Thanks for having me. So my name is Jacob Galan. I'm an associate professor in the Division of Human Genetics. My background is in toxicology with an emphasis on high-throughput technologies, and my interests are actually to look at the impact of toxins, biological toxins, or environmental contaminants and their impact on human health. In the Department of Genetics, since I'm more of a kind of a protein guy, if we consider protein scientist, protein biochemist, but now working with the Department of Human Genetics, we have a new focus. My group has a new focus to look at proteogenomics and integrating the human genome, which is really exciting. It's brand new for me. So, so we're doing really great things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so what are some of the most significant health challenges faced by our community, and how is your work addressing them?
So in the Department of Human Genetics, I'm going to quote one of my colleagues, the great and powerful Vince Diego. We do actually the people science. So we study the people of the Rio Grande Valley. And currently, we focus on projects that are impacting the people here. And so those are related to Alzheimer's disease, where there's high incidence of Alzheimer's, fatty liver disease, and guess you could say dementia and various psychiatric disorders. That's another thing we're looking at, and we're kind of it's interesting. You talk with clinicians, and there's been upticks in breast cancer, colon cancer. So these are the things that we're also like very interested in exploring. Because these are happening, one of our areas is to investigate why these are happening. And so our approach is to look at the genome, but then also the environment, right? So these gene bioenvironment interactions to help kind of explain these various health effects. Yeah. So I would say like Alzheimer's, NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, depression, psychiatric disorders, cancer.
Great. Awesome. And so how do you see the future of medicine evolving, particularly in the context of community health in our region? Because, everything is all about the DNA sequencing and 23andMe and the personalized medicine. So, can you speak a little bit about how you think that kind of, medicine will impact this community or this region?
Yeah. No, that's a very good question. So you're kind of and these are not old concepts. So precision medicine, translational medicine, these are the big themes, right? From bench to clinic, right? Clinical research, and so like you have to have these kind of these approaches that can be enacted, starting at the research level, right? And so it's really a synergy between clinicians and researchers and even educators, which I think is on the come up here in the Rio Grande Valley, especially with the with with the School of Medicine, with the various hospitals, and just kind of getting people together to collaborate and to kind of find these kind of inroads, ultimately to find new innovative strategies, right? Whether they're in diagnostics or in therapeutics, but then they are directly translatable to the community, right? And those components are already in place. So I think we're in a great spot to where we're going to see some really amazing outcomes. I expect to see drops in diabetes. I expect to see drops in cancer rates because we're enacting these types of we're exploring medicine in a new way, right? Like I said, these are not. It's been around, but now you're just seeing an acceleration, right? But it's kind of brand new to the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, it's a great lead up to my next question. So, what role do you think education plays in improving public health, and how does the School of Medicine contribute to this? You did kind of touch on it a little bit, but, mostly, I guess, what role do you think education plays in improving public health?
These are great questions. They're hard. Education is paramount. If you don't have an educated workforce, you're not going to have the people here, the community here. I'm from South Texas, right? My job is my job, but I love to work on issues and science related to the people of South Texas, right? The Rio Grande Valley. So I think when you cultivate that through education and then synergizing that with research, with medicine, like these are it's critical, right? It's foundational, right? And you have to have that. You need it, because we're how are we gonna? What's unique about the Rio Grande Valley is people they want to stay here, right? Which it's a great place. So number one, creating educational opportunities that kind of meet the needs of these new advancements, right? These new advancements in science and in technology. So creating curriculum that help foster that, right? And that could be anything from starting in high school, where they get lab experience, and then also at the collegiate level, where maybe they're taking, when I was taking my undergrad in chemistry, I never took a formal class on mass spectrometry because it just wasn't offered. But it was a new technology that was just being rolled out, right? This was back in 2005, and so, but that should be a course, right, for undergrads, right? If they're in that kind of analytical chemistry side of things, right? They should already be taking translational medicine and precision medicine, clinical or genomics, right? And then even making these a part of the medical curriculum too, right? So this is all going to help. If you have a high level technical fields, you got to bring people up through the educational pipelines, and once again, that goes back to educating teachers on how to teach these STEM courses, right? And now with AI and machine learning, that's got to be a place where that is integrated into the education, but then also in the research and possibly the clinic.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up in terms of the opportunities that are presented for students. Because for me as an undergrad at Texas A&M Kingsville, my organic chemistry professor came in and one morning and she asked, "Hey, who wants to volunteer in my lab?" And it was almost like she couldn't even finish the sentence and my hand was already shooting up, because I thought that to work in a lab, you had to be presented the opportunity as opposed to just going and knocking on a random lab door and being like, "Hey, can I volunteer in your lab?" Yeah. And so when that opportunity presented itself, I took advantage of it. But had the professor not ever done that, I might not have ever got that little bit of research experience I did as an undergrad, because I feel like a lot of undergrads, maybe not like me, but could be leaning towards introverted or just kind of not afraid, but unsure of how college works and how approachable professors can be and are and things like that.
Yeah. So if you think about like the university, especially for undergrads, you know, there's two major components that it can offer you. Obviously, you're going to get an education, right? And you're going to learn the theory, and you're going to take those courses, right, that to help you advance and have new knowledge, right? But in parallel to that, you have research opportunities, right, where you're going to apply what you're learning in the classroom, right, and you have access, right, and you have a completely if you're not doing research now, I would highly recommend for students to start doing research, because at the end of the day, when I look for students to come into my lab, or if you're going to go out in the job market and you're going to look for opportunities, because you have that additional research experience, you're learning to not only apply the theory, you're learning skills like professional development, you're learning skills like presenting, you're learning writing skills, right? You're developing in totality as a whole for a workplace, right? And so you're just going to be better than someone who just took courses, right? You got all that extra things, and guess what? You probably presented and published, right? If you stick at it, right? So so you become more well-rounded, and then with that there's more opportunities. Your perspective on what is out there in terms of career is like exponentially increased. As an undergrad too, did the same thing. I just walked into a lab. I was actually in the Ronald E. McNair program, and I had I was basically broke, and they were offering me money to do research, and I had this opportunity over the summer. And then it was just like a veil had been like lifted over my eyes, and I saw this other pathway that kind of catered to my personality. I love sci-fi, I love like doing science, and I've always like been interested. But your brain works in a different way when you do research, right? You're in research, you're applauded for being wrong, right? That's the scientific method, right? You're learning through this knowledge, right? These experimental designs and experiments, and you try, right? And so you fail a lot, right? That's a hard thing to do on a regular basis, right? I've been doing that for almost 25, 30 years, right? So it takes a certain type of personality, I think, but you just kind of fall in love with it, right? And then you're like, okay, well, this is the pathway I'm going to pursue. But it wouldn't have happened hadn't I not got into this Ronald McNair program, right? And saw these other avenues. And then you meet other people who are just wild and crazy like you are, who want to do this kind of you find a motley crew of scientists who are just you see yourself in them, and you have a commonality, right? And it's discovery. It's exploring. You don't know the answer, right? That's kind of one of the things I always tell students when they're struggling. And I'll just kind of break off on a tangent here. There's a moment where you have just discovered something, and nobody else in the world, because of probably what you're working on is so specific and particular, right? New pathway, new protein, whatever, a new gene, whatever. But there are moments when you're doing this research before it's published where you have these breakthroughs, and you're probably the only one in the world who knows this information. I'm telling you, man, it's like a drug. It is fascinating, and it's so that's special, right? That's special. You just discovered something that nobody else knows. That was built upon all these other theories and ideas, right? But yeah, it's that's kind of my, as a purist in a sense, as a scientist, when you have those moments and you're just, oh man, this is well, I'm gonna hold on to this for a bit and just kind of soak it in, and then you give it out to the community, right? Mm-hmm. Publish, or what's
perish.
That's right.
All right, great, and that's of course I've known you for a while and know that
really
things that these are.
Why don't you tell everybody our origin story?
All right, so I met Dr. Galan in 2016 when I was an undergrad at Texas A&M Kingsville. He had just come to cover for my biochemistry professor who had gone to South America for a conference. And I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to take a quick radio music break, and we'll finish the story after. Thanks, everyone. All right, everyone. Thank you for taking that break with us. Oh, what the heck? All right, and so to continue the story, my professor had gone to South America for a conference, and I don't even remember her mentioning that she was going to be gone. So I was going to class that day expecting her to be there. And when I'm in the classroom in the chemistry building at Texas A&M Kingsville, was on the second floor, and as I'm walking up the steps, as you're walking up steps, it's like a broken flight. You got to walk halfway up one way and then halfway up to the second floor. And as I was walking up the second floor and more of the floor was becoming into my view where I could see down the hallway, I saw Dr. Galan in the hallway, and I had no idea who he was, but I had the strongest I know you from somewhere feeling that I had ever had in my life. And that's the only way I can describe it, because I've had that feeling a handful of times, but it was that times a million. So just describing it as that, like, hey, I know you from somewhere feeling is the only way I could put words to it. So I had no idea who he was. Saw him in the hallway. Like, damn, that was a weird feeling. So went to the classroom and sat down, and lo and behold, he walks in and says, oh, hello, I'm Dr. Galan, and I'm here to teach the class because your professor is at a conference. So the whole time he's teaching us about mass spectrometry and, how mass specs work, and I can't pay any attention because I'm just rerunning my whole life through my head. Like, where do I know this guy from? Where do I know this guy from? So I'm rerunning my whole life through my head and have zero idea where I know him from or maybe know him from. And at the end of the class, he says, hey, I'm going to give a talk later today about, how I ended up at Massachusetts General Hospital from being here an undergrad at Texas A&M Kingsville. And I'd really appreciate if y'all could come into my lecture, my talk later today. And so I thought that was going to be my opportunity to go to his talk. And then when he was done, I approached him, and I was just going to ask him for his email so that way I could email him and ask him, like, hey, do I know you from somewhere? And after the talk, as I approached him, before I could even say anything, he goes, hey, man, do you have an older brother? I feel like I know you from somewhere. And my head exploded. And I was just like, at that point, I pretty much went blank and probably just rambled on about something. But so it was super surreal, because not only did I have that, like, man, I know you from somewhere feeling, but you reciprocated it to me without, like, basically never really talking to me, So, yeah, here you go.
Very, very, very true. So actually Ricardo is 75% correct. That was actually the very first class I taught. I had come from Boston I actually so your professor was actually Dr. Elda Sanchez, one of my lifelong friends and actually mentor. I was actually her first student. And unfortunately, she was not going to be there the week I was arriving, and she had asked me if I could take over her class, and I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. She actually was in England, not South America, in Cambridge. And so I took over her Biochem 2 class, which was on metabolism, not mass spectrometry, FYI. So it's okay, 75% right. But no, but that was very true. When I was giving the lecture, I saw this dude in the back who was just like mad dogging me everywhere. I was like, why is this guy like staring at me, like following me with like, what's going on? He's just like has this grimace on his face. Yeah, and it was serious. It was pretty surreal. Like I felt like I had either you reminded me of somebody or I'd known you. And then like yeah, you came up and we kind of like chatted, and then a couple months later he shoots me an email saying like, hey, I want to work with you. This is back in 2016, right? Yeah. I want to work with you. Let's collaborate and let's start like working together. And I was like, cool, let's do it. Like I got a fan. But if you don't, yeah. But Ricardo's also from South Texas, so I think we have a lot in common. So yeah, no, it's a good origin story. And then I ended up recruiting him from Washington. When he was in Washington, I recruited him to come to the UT-RGV to our School of Medicine to join our PhD program. And so now he's here. See?
Yeah, and sorry about that. Like I said, during that class, I paid zero attention. I was just running my life, through my head, so I didn't know what you were teaching, and it was just me staring off into space and trying to figure out where I knew you from. And also, I could have sworn it was South America. I thought it was like a Venom conference in South America or something. But anyway. All right, so moving on, past story time. So the next question, is there anything you want to share about research or any breakthroughs in the lab that you're excited about or projects coming up or, anything like that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the division/Department of Human Genetics, we have many great things like coming down the pipe that have already started. Our department is actually headed by Dr. Sarah Williams Blangero, and we have like amazing faculty that are, if you ever see any kind of scientist or researcher who is faculty, associate professor, full professors, assistant professors, chances are if they're not in the lab, they're at their offices or in their offices working and writing grants to bring in money, right? So that's just what we have to do. That's kind of the name of the game, right? And we're constantly working on that. Yeah. And that's another process and another thing in itself. So we have great faculty in the department that are constantly working on bringing in money, developing new ideas, and creating new opportunities for students. So we recently received a U54 diversity grant. This is the PI of this is Dr. Williams Blangero, which I am a part of in helping this workforce development corps. Right, this is over $10 million grant that allows us to do science. We have research projects associated with that. We have an administrative core associated with that, and we're part of a consortium with other universities throughout the U.S. And this is all funded by NEH to help drive genomic sciences, right? To look at health disparities and to help the community, right? So it's all there. You can go find this diversity center through the go look at diversity centers in the NEH websites, and you can find this. What is it? It's the National Institutes of Genome Research, and this is also under the leadership of Ebony McFadden. So, and then, like I said, there's a lot. I think we have now 6 other. In total, we're 6 universities or institutes working together on this big initiative. A part of that is actually, and another really great project is a G/E study looking at BAP, actually looking at neurotoxins. This is an RM1 grant, and the PI of this is Joanne Curran. So this is an $8 million grant, right? Looking at, and this is a really cool grant to where you're seeing challenges of these various toxins or chemicals, and then looking at and doing this in stem cells, and then able to assess G/E associations, right? So, looking at how the genetics influences these differential responses to these different chemicals, right? And we're doing these in neurons, we're doing these in alveolar type cells. Because you can actually, because what we in the Department of Human Genetics, we have all this genetics data, right? So we can kind of see what makes people more susceptible to these, to this. Not only can we see differential metabolism of these people, but what are their responses to these, these challenges, right? So these are super high, powerful types of experiments that we're doing in the department. And we have a plethora of others too. And so those are just 2 of kind of the big grants, and we have a lot of other PIs that are working on other grants. Tom Howard is working on immunopeptidomics, looking at blood clotting and all kinds of really cool science there. John Vanderberg has the monodelphis colony, looking at using monodelphis as a developmental model, and looking also at exposure science and challenges as well, right? Because the mono has a lot of advantages that for experimentally that you can't do in a mouse. We just we're actually doing a really cool study where we're looking at brain tissue and looking at the development of the monodelphis, right? From like, embryo stage to like late adult, right? Never been done before, right? And so we're doing tissue proteomics and also tissue fossil proteomics. This is headed by some of our PhD students, a group of them, Marco Arriaga, Rene Hernandez, Ricardo Perez, who's talking to me right now. So we got some really cool like stuff, coming down the way. We have an MRI headed by Anderson Winkler. I'm trying not to leave it out. He's getting ready to like start doing some really cool science. Also, we have some other faculty. Jason Parsons. He assists and helps us with. He's also running some plastics. Him and Dr. Joanne Curran are getting ready to work on a project related to microplastics, right, and how that contributes, to a lot of these various types of diseases, right? This is a really hot area. So yeah, no, we're looking at extracellular vesicles and how these can be used as this is also part of my group, and I'm helping some others, how these extracellular vesicles can actually be readouts to particular diseases, right? It's kind of more related to biomarker discovery using these high throughput technologies. But all that aside, I would say that our Diversity Center grant has built within it, in the Workforce Development Core, a mentor program. Now, I've been around science for a long time, right? And John Blangiero can excite the hell out of you, to do some of these cool projects, and our John Vanderberg and Joanne were like, oh, we're gonna do this, this is a cool thing, and you can get excited about it, right? But there is something that's happening that I have never witnessed before in our mentor program. Actually, we call it the clinic, where you just see the birth, the essence of like pure research collaboration. And so this is, like I said, this is through our Diversity Center. This is headed by Aaron Manusoff. This has faculty, Vince Diego, Marcio Almeida, myself, PhD students, medical students, undergrads. And so you're just seeing and it's a mentor program, right? But it functions and operates like a real world, like, hey, we got deadlines, we got projects, are you in or you out? It is amazing, and people are like showing up. We had many of our students already get accepted to the American Society of Human Genetics. They're writing abstracts. They're getting ready to publish. We're going to have a whole swath of publications coming out related to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But just as I've seen so many mentor programs, and you have the what I call the classic mentor program, where it's just you and your PI, right? But this is something really special, because it has that high level, that high level thinking where ideas, they come and go, but the best idea wins, right? And then at the same time you have, and you have scientists at all levels, right? Even the faculty, and and it's a very kind of free, open space where, people work together, are collaborating across all these different, areas of their own interest, right? But they're working together for this kind of common good, and it's amazing, and just how much progress we've made. And you even have, I'm just give a shout out to Marcio, where we talk about high level stuff, and he'll like say, all right, let me explain this to the students. Boom, like we take time to just like, okay, here's the take home message. This is what we're trying to say, right? So you come in not really knowing, but over a couple of like, we have it, once a week or every other week. You catch up, right? And then you're a part of this like new thing, right? So it's been that I'm telling you, man, it's like fascinating seeing, the progress we've made in this program. All right, I'll stop talking.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of amazing things going on in the department. And
So that's our biggest breakthrough.
and so I'm going to just speak out of personal experience a little bit in terms of being in those meetings for maybe the last 6 weeks or so. I got looped into them starting in the summer by Dr. Manisov. And man, I really enjoy them because they're like you said, they're very collaborative, they're very open. We get to mingle with undergrads and medical students and hear their perspectives and, just do these things. And we're all working together on a book chapter, a book that's going to be published. And, they're like Jacob said, there's just so many different things that we work on together collaboratively looking up genes and pathways and basically divvying up the workload and trying to give people relevant experience in real world applications type, research. And do you want to say anything about how people can get involved with that? Like, because the meetings are Fridays, and I don't know if there's like, should they email or reach out or just come by the department or?
Yeah, I mean, it just really depends if you're a grad student or undergrad. Contact Dr. Aaron Manisoff, and he has, and it's really kind of, we have feeder programs, so that's kind of, you'd probably have to be in a program already to where that would, kind of students who want to get research experience. But you can definitely reach out to us. And we're always looking for talented students to participate. But yeah, just contact me, jacob.galan@utrgv.
All right, great. And so I guess moving on for the next question, and I guess I'll speak a little bit about this before passing the mic back to you. So it's what advice would you give students or young professionals interested in pursuing a career in medical research or healthcare? I mean, you brushed over that a little bit earlier and just mentioning like, hey, get lab experience, volunteer where you can, write papers. But what I'd say most importantly, because, I guess I'll keep it general for most students regardless of what their major is, because, you can do research regardless of what your major is, right? You can go research some old literature if you're an English major or some old art style or, like obviously there's different platforms to do your research and different ways to do research. But I'd say the most important thing is just to get uncomfortable because that's really how you grow. And, I'm also a military veteran. And before I joined the military, I was a huge introvert. I hated just talking to people. I wanted to be in a bubble forever. And then the military kind of takes you out of that. You have no choice but to communicate to get the jobs done and make the mission happen. And so, yeah, and then after I got out of the military, started going back to college with my GI Bill. I just took it as like, man, I got to get uncomfortable in as many ways as possible because that's the only way I'm going to grow and develop as a professional.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. So what was your question again?
Just advice for young students or professionals who want to do careers in medical research or healthcare.
My advice is never take advice. You got to do what's best for you. Whatever that is, you got to pursue your path. Don't listen to anybody. Follow your gut. And if you see, all right, I'll tell you a story. So the first time I got into research, the first time I ever wanted to be a professor and to kind of like, and to, as soon as it's like I said, like the veil gets lifted and then you see people doing the thing and you're like, I want to be like that guy. Right. And so that's all that happened to me. I had a mentor back in the day, John Bettis, who that's the first lab I ever joined. Right. And I, not knowing what a professor does, I got to see like what he does. Right. And his day to day, like this guy comes into work. He gets to think and read and write for a living and be wrong in research and mentoring students to like make them the best they can be. Like, I want to do what that guy does. Like, I've always wanted to know to do this, right? And so, but whatever. So but everybody told me, oh, you should be a pharmacist. Oh, you should go to medical school. Oh, my parents were, you should go into, pharmaceutical sales. I'm like, ugh, like that's just not me, right? So, and I've talked with undergrads before. I've had undergrads. I've taught undergrad classes where students come to me and they're struggling. I taught various levels of chemistry, everything from inorganic, chemistry 101, all the way to like high level biochemistry, right? And you can see kind of, I had this one student come in and she was just like bedazzled. Like her hair was all like this different colors, and she had very fashionable, right? And I could tell she had all these drawings on her, like on her book cover. And she came to me and she was like, "I'm really struggling in chemistry." And I go, "Why are you in chemistry?" And she was like, "'Cause my mom wants me to be in chemistry." And I go, "What do you want to do?" Obviously, she said, "I want to be a fashion designer." I'm like, "Then you should be a fashion designer. Yeah, you should drop this class and go do what you want to do." Like I said, you parents out there are probably not gonna like what I'm saying. I think it's if you want to have a backup plan, fine, and do something else that you think, but you gotta pursue that thing. And I don't even know if people actually pursue this. I think it picks us. So my advice is never take advice. Just get out there, grind, and be disciplined, and to get to that thing that is gonna whether it's a career, whether it's a stepping stone to something else, just do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point because when I got out of the military, and I'll end with this comment, and we're going to take a quick radio music break and then come up and wrap up the show. But just a quick comment is when I got out of the military, a lot of the path guys that I served with took was becoming a police officer. And when I moved back down to Texas, my mom was trying to get me to become a state trooper. And I was like, "Mom, like, all love and respect to the, police force and state troopers and stuff because they got a risky job and deal with a lot of nonsense." But I was like, "Man, that's not for me." Yeah, I did military stuff, but I knew that wasn't for me, and I wouldn't find any joy in it because I go crazy just not seeing people use their blinker. So if I had the authority of a police officer.
Let me just say something, like, also really quick, like, and I know, and there's probably also an urgency to make money too, and I get it. Who doesn't like money? Money's important. You need it to survive. And if you're gonna choose a career because you want to make money and your career is like second, it's just like a second thought to you, you don't really care, that's fine too, right? But if you really pursue something and be a master at something, whatever it is, people will find a way to give you money for that thing. So just keep that in mind. Like, just keep. And it's weird how, especially in this day and age where you see like influencers now and all these new areas where people can make money in new, innovative ways, right? But at the end of the day, if you're in I'd have to say in like science, technology, and in discovery, innovation, like these are the money making, endeavors, right? They fail a lot, but this is, you can, startup companies, tech, developing, this is why I really love that UTRGV is committed to this. And I've seen it at Purdue, and I have colleagues and friends who they have like this discovery park where science, technology, pretty much all aspects of the university can funnel commercialization strategies for new types of technology, help create patents, right? And things that are that students actually discovered or were a part of, or maybe with the faculty, or in groups, stuff like that. So I believe it's the Business Commercialization Center, which is becoming. You're starting to see this kind of new entrepreneurship type of objectives, right? So yeah, so you could have a career that just doesn't really have any it doesn't have to be the typical career anymore, right? I don't want one like that. I don't even think professors now have like that. We can do so many different things, right? But at the end of the day, you got to kind of get the credentials that push you to that point to where now you kind of have a seat at the table and the doors open, because that is actually, and you meet people, right? that's just the way of the flow of things, and how like you kind of, if I hadn't met certain people in the Department of Human Genetics, I would not be here, right? That's just how it goes, right? So you just create more opportunity for yourself.
All right, everyone, quick music break, and we'll be right back. Thank you. All right, and we're back. All right, so to wrap up the segment, I just wanted to see if there's anything you want to say about the graduate program, or, basically give you the last few minutes of the show to say whatever you want to say, promote whatever you want to promote.
All right. Yeah, so in our department in human genetics, we actually have a very robust and lively ongoing PhD program. It's headed by Dr. Joanne Curran. She's our program director, and we've just now they just started. We just recruited or brought in our third cohort, right? And now we're at 16 students in total, and we're gonna bring in another cohort next year, and I think applications start in end of September, coming up. So be on the lookout if you're interested in studying genetics. If you're interested in integrating environmental sciences, if you're interested in translational medicine, stem cells, we have a stem cell program. We have actually we were talking about this. We have an MRI. Our strengths in the Department of Human Genetics are that we have multiple strengths. Like, if you look at the state-of-the-art equipment that we have, we just bought a new ICP mass spectrometer that has been modified. Right, typically these are for like environmental sciences, right? Looking at geological types of samples, but these are modified for human analysis, right? So it's like this was described by the technician. This is like bringing a tank to a knife fight. Like, this is they don't do the things that we're creating, right? It's not typical. We have high resolution mass spectrometers. One of them, there's only 3 in the state of Texas, right? For high throughput analysis, right? Because we do large population studies. We're going to get to the point where we can analyze anything, that we want to. So it's just not to mention we have one of the largest biorepositories in the state of Texas, right? We have thousands and thousands of pond samples, which is unheard of, right? All looking at, all used for like studying, these are precious samples, and these are all used for like, studying people here in the Rio Grande Valley. And so we have a lot of projects going on. We probably have one of the top 10 labs, I would say, in the state of, I would say actually in the country. I just did, not to knock other universities, but I just did a tour of other facilities, and nobody comes close to what we can do, right? And we look at disease from a multi-perspective lens. What they're exposed to, their transcriptional program, their genetics, right? Their cells, the mechanisms, right? It is what's called multi-omics, right? So you can't do this. These approaches where they're all in one place is very unheard of, right? And so we're one of the very few places that can do this, to look at, the people's health, right? The people of the Rio Grande Valley, the people science. So it's just, like I said, it's if you're interested, and keep in mind, I think one of the misconceptions of graduate school, going from an undergrad to a PhD, is you don't need a master's. Yeah, if you have research experience as an undergrad, apply to our program. Look out for it. If you're in a lab now and you want to like continue and you want to stay here in the Rio Grande Valley and study the diseases that affect, you probably have family members that have diabetes, or have older grandparents that have Alzheimer's, right? You can actually work on understanding these mechanisms. What causes them? What are the causal genetic factors or comorbidities that contribute to these types of chronic diseases, right? And so I think it's a so anyway, our PhD program is geared to help students, number one, have a strong basis in human genetics, statistical genetics, but then it has all these peripheral types of sciences, right, that are cutting edge, state of the art, that allow for that type of training. And then the valuable knowledge base of scientists that you have access to, right? John and Sarah Blanchero, right? If you go look at, it's like, it's like having, LeBron James and Michael Jordan, like, on your team, right? Like that's how John Vanderberg too. Like it's like Joanne Curran. Like they have like if you look at their track record for like grants, it exceeds like 50 million plus, right? It's like amazing, So and even for faculty too, right? To come and collaborate and come to be a part of this like really this great thing. Everybody should know what's happening, in South Texas in the Department of Human Genetics. We've got a brand new building, and we have all these new dedicated resources to like promote this, right? Because Texas is investing in this, and so, like I said, I think I saw John Blanchero is one of people probably don't know this, and this happened. Look, and I'm gonna go to another story. John Blanchero is one of the top 100 geneticists like in the world. Like there's a ranking and he's there, right? That's but I want to just make like a comment on scientists. And people have probably seen scientists like at coffee shops, and they didn't really realize what they were contributing to, right? The impacts that they make to everyday life, whether it's in medicine or in technology. When 10 years ago, I was actually sitting at a coffee shop, and I recognized one of the founders of mass spectrometry, Graham Cooks. Just having his latte, and people were just walking by him like he was just an old dude, right? Like, and I was just like, what? Like, look at it's unfortunate that his contributions and what he's helped develop, and yet he's just not recognized, right? It's like it's a different type of rock star, I guess, but I think it should be acknowledged, right? So that's something just to think about as a student when you get to interact with some of these faculty, the knowledge you can take away and learn, right? I think you'll be changed forever, right? So anyway, our PhD program has that, right? It has that, right? So it's a great opportunity, and so if you see us at a graduate fair, come say hi. You'll probably see some brains. We got some cool swag. We got some cups and all kinds of cool things. We got some squishy brains for stress relievers and stuff like that. So we're always looking for talented students to come and join our team. So that's all I got to say about that.
All right, thanks. And I'll just quickly note, as a student in the program myself, that it has been a remarkable opportunity to work in your lab, work in Dr. Vandenberg's lab, and just be a part of it all. And for my work, like I mentioned, I do the CRISPR work, so I use a microscope to do micro-inject the CRISPR into embryos. And it's always so surreal. Like, man, I can't believe I do this for work. Like, I feel like this is something that I had wanted to do for a long time and never imagined myself doing it. So the fact that these opportunities are here in Brownsville also blows people away when I talk to them about what I do. And other than that, we're coming up on our hour. So I just wanted to note for any listeners that our show had started late today. We're normally 11:30 to 12:30, but there were some technical difficulties, which is why we started 30 minutes late today. So next Tuesday from 11:30 to 12:30, catch us again, RGV Community Health Hour. And we'll have another special guest next week from outside the country. And I think he's going to be,
Tariq.
his name is Tariq.
Dauda.
Dauda.
Yeah, he's an AI machine learning specialist.
An AI machine learning specialist. So next week's conversation is going to be really great to pick his brain and hear what he has to say about the amazing work that they're doing, and also collaborating with Dr. Galan as well. So, all right, everyone. Well, thank you for your time, and until next week, this was RGV Community Health Hour. Stay safe and be healthy.